Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Jawar, and today is January 21st, 2025. It is the day before Samsung Unpacked, and I've got the lovely Nirave.
Hello,
Gondhia
darling.
here on the show. Hi, how are you?
I'm delightful.
So we have the phones here, and tomorrow, when you get this podcast, it'll be behind you, but tomorrow the world finds out what we're going to tell you about now. So, Nirave,
Miriam.
Galaxy S25 series. 3 phones, surprisingly, no murmurs or comments or discussions about the slim or thin or whatever it's going to be.
I think, obviously, this being a day before briefing kind of thing, we don't know what they're going to say at Unpacked. I think I think there'll be a teaser or we've got one more thing, or it's coming soon. And I don't know if that will just be the slim. I wonder if we'll even see maybe rumors of the Galaxy Ring 2
or Ring
classes.
2. Yeah.
But at the same time, with the way the schedule looks like for tomorrow, they've got an hour. They're going to have the whole of Unpacked's going to be an hour.
They usually fill that up with a lot of like theater
so
and spectacle.
we may actually not see any of that.
So just to fill you in a little bit, we're going to only talk about Samsung on this podcast. It's going to be a little shorter than usual because that's the time we have, right? So let's dive in. I think I'm a little underwhelmed with the hardware. I don't know how you feel, but like we'll go through some of the details, but overall, what's your impression?
It's funny. I was asked this question 5 minutes after seeing them for the first time, and my response was, and this was by Samsung trying to find a way to be polite. I couldn't. 20 minutes later, having been hands-on, I went, I think I may need to adjust that. And the reason is, yes, they are so very similar to last year on paper. But, and I feel like this is a phrase that applies for many years, especially in the foldable space, the little changes make a big difference. And I like them far more than I expected to.
I don't disagree. I think that details matter. And I think that, sometimes that makes a big difference. But I have an Oppo Find X8 Pro in my pocket right now that I'm reusing after taking a break for the OnePlus 13. And there's absolutely no way that I would go for the Samsung that I just played with that phone in my pocket.
1,000%.
Absolutely no way.
I will wholeheartedly say that the caveat is, whilst they're perfectly fine as phones, and they're, you know what, if you're a Samsung user for and you're a couple of generations out, you will enjoy this. But the S20, S21 Ultra, they were phones worth changing too. And I'm struggling to see how this competes with in the same way.
And I don't want to just single out Samsung here, right? Because it's like Apple has the same problem. Their phones are super evolutionary. As I mentioned on last week's podcast, I'm really not happy with my iPhone 16 Pro. I feel like I got ripped off. I'm not saying that I would feel that way if I was a Samsung customer. I think you're right. If you're a Samsung customer, you're based in North America, you walk into the Verizon store every 2 or 3 years, you get your phone on a plan for $9 a month, your mind will be blown because it's like 2 or 3 years have gone by and you're going to get a much better phone. But if you compare, as my audience does, because we're tech savvy early adopters, the S24 Ultra to the S25 Ultra, it's a tough sell. Now, the chipset makes a difference. That's the big news. All 3 phones have Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy. And I'm a little puzzled by that, right?
Well, no. So I think, obviously, North America, sure. Outside, more than likely there'll be an Exynos. But remember, they said to us, because I asked the question, they were like, it's custom. So there'll be a big delta. How much? That's the question I really want to ask here want to know is, how much of a difference is this actually going to make? And that's the interesting point, because last year, 8 Gen 3 for Galaxy to 8 Gen 3
wasn't
just a
clock
big
change.
It wasn't big.
So that's the thing they couldn't answer for us. And I think we're going to have to talk to Qualcomm as well, because if that seems really odd that they would spin out a new chip that they talked about a new AP.
A heavily customized
AP,
version.
but application processor, but that's the whole thing. An SoC is an application processor. So I'm like, what are you talking about? Is it like one core is different? We need a lot of clarification and give us some time to figure that out. But the 8 Elite for Galaxy is supposedly a bigger change from the previous for Galaxy chips. And of course, also they did some work on the thermals. I think that they're, based on other 8 Elite phones that I've tested so far, a lot of work has been put in by all the manufacturers to make thermals better than 8 Gen 3, and hopefully that's the case. Stay tuned. But the only big difference on these phones really right now, they're a little lighter. There is a new chip that's across the board. Now, the regular phone gets 12 gigs of RAM versus 8. That's the only difference. Base storage is the same, 128, 256. Screen is the same, 6.2, 1080p. You still get that 4,000 milliamp hour battery. The design looks the same. Now you get the camera circles from the Fold 6 that we saw, right? Like that kind of like black, polished, spinny thing. It's cool. I like it. But other than that, there's really no difference that we noticed.
I gotta say though,
the cameras are the same.
No, but this is where I'm actually more positive than I fully expected to be, which is yes, they're lighter, but honestly, the difference, especially in the Ultra, makes a huge difference. And what I learned,
I was going to get to the Ultra,
and I stuck a case on them. The big difference comes when you're rocking a case with 24 and 25 Ultra. The difference is astronomical because with 24 Ultra, it's big. It makes it's a sizable difference. Whereas 25 Ultra, like with the case on, it just feels, retains a lot. It retains that it's still more compact and I wouldn't say durable. It's just more compact and more pocket friendly.
Yeah. So for me, what struck me is that the S25 Plus, there's no difference other than the chip. Nothing has changed. Same display, Quad HD, 6.7 inch. You get the same battery at 4,900 milliamp hours. Same cameras on the base and the Plus, which is 50 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide,
50 megapixel telephoto.
And no, it's not 50. That's I'm talking about.
Oh, that's the Ultra.
The regular.
Yeah, sorry.
So 10 megapixel 3x telephoto. Like really, there's nothing to talk about there. And I'm like, how? Like, at least the prices are the same: $799, $999, $1299. Now the Ultra is interesting because the Ultra is the one that has seen the biggest changes. There's 4 main changes, right? Number one, the display is actually slightly bigger because there's less bezel, 6.9. Then the second change is they rounded off the corners so it doesn't dig in your palm and destroy you.
It's far more squared off and way nicer.
You know how Michael Fisher literally has a scar on his hand about that. So that's an improvement. Although I do like the squareness, it wasn't very comfortable, especially in the corners. So that's number 2. Number 3, the chip. And number 4 is that the ultra wide is now a proper 50 megapixel to compete with Apple's 48 and everybody else's 50.
So it's funny, that Ultra is actually, if you look at it on paper, 200 megapixel main, 50 megapixel ultra wide, and a 50 megapixel telephoto.
But there's also a 10 megapixel 3x in there, and I don't know why they kept that. It's kind of weird. But anyway, sensor fusion is why I think they kept it. There's another thing that should be of note. I guess there's 5 things. If you count the rounded corners and the display bezel and one, that's 4 things, is that the S Pen no longer has a battery in it, which means that you can no longer use it as a remote to take photos.
I did not.
So it still has all the hover stuff and the active stylus stuff because of the screen driving that, but it doesn't actually have a capacitor or battery in there like it used to. And we have to establish if we can take the old pens and put them in the new phone and if it'll charge or not. It might not. I bet you it'll work, but
it won't charge.
It won't charge. And that feels to me like you threw away one of the only major advantages you had of the stylus,
Yeah, I mean, being able to use it as a remote definitely made sense. But I'd wager that I don't know if
most people didn't.
Most people didn't. These Samsung's not stupid. They'll take stuff away that no one uses, and I I think it'd be a bigger deal if they'd got rid of the S Pen.
Well, right. I mean, or if they'd gone for like a capacitive nubbing instead of like an active stylus,
Yeah,
right?
like that point would have been like, whoa,
No,
you've just
like
changed.
Moto G stylus style. Like it would
God
be
help
bad.
us.
But the point is like, it's still titanium. It still has super anti-reflective coating. It's got a stronger version of the armor glass. Like there are improvements here, but I am just like, I cannot get excited about the hardware. What I am actually excited about, to be honest, and you tell me what you think, is some of these AI features. And I'm not talking about the generative AI photo editing and all the summarization stuff that they've already had. I'm talking about this local LLM that's encrypted on your Knox Samsung security chip and stays there unless you transfer phones, which is interesting because that means that there is a vulnerability. If you can use Smart Switch to get that onto a new phone, somebody could hack that. So
no, I would be shocked if so. I know where you're going with that. I don't think you can hack that. And the reason I'll say is, when was the last time you used Smart Switch?
I mean, a lot of people, that's how they
No,
switch.
when did you last
I personally never use it because I start from scratch.
So here's the thing. I've used Smart Switch a lot. It's not as simple as, hey, do that. There is a pretty damn strong connection between the two phones in terms of the way they do security.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, the fact that there's an exit, there's the fact that there's a way to get it out, it means there's an opening. Like, you know how right now the fingerprint, you cannot get that out. Like the capacitive or optical on any phone, there's no way to get it out. It's in the chip only, and it's encrypted on the chip, and there's nothing you can do. You can't get it. But the fact that, and that's what they originally said with the LLM. They said the LLM learns from your use of the phone and becomes your own kind of AI and that's super cool. I think that's the part that's got me the most excited about the entire thing. But I'm just saying that personally, I am not concerned about transferring with Smart Switch. I'm just saying that it seems odd to me that they're making such a big fuss about it being encrypted on device and in the Knox enclave. And then they say, oh, but you can copy it over with Smart Switch. That's like, I mean, it's good because you'll keep your LLM, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, so then like somebody could hack it. Because
I just don't think I think that's a neither here nor there. Like, frankly,
for the average user, it doesn't matter.
But no, even when you look at the way that Smart Switch works in general, yeah, in theory you can hack it, but in practicality, what they're doing is ensuring that if you use a 25 Ultra for 3 bloody years and then you switch to a 28 Ultra, not presumably, you want that history and that local LLM to know you, continue knowing you, because it'd be worse.
No, I agree. This is important. That's why I asked the question in the Q&A. It's like, can you transfer this over? Because I want you to be able to transfer it over. Yeah. I'm just saying that it contradicts its local LLM secure, because like that's not. Like as soon as you can transfer it, you're losing some security. So I'm trying to understand.
I guess it depends on how secure. I think the AI stuff though is fascinating. I candidly wanted to see more because I think a lot of what we're seeing, I reckon, will be on old Galaxy devices and on other phones.
That's the impression I got. I felt like there's been a very strong partnership between Google and Samsung in the last couple of years on AI, because the Circle of Search launched on Galaxy S25.
But 6 weeks later, it was available elsewhere.
And so I think these features they're talking about here, other than the integration of smart things, which is very unique to, and the Ring and stuff. We'll give you some examples in a second, but I think other than that, I think this is all Google.
We're going to see Now Brief, Evening Brief, all of that's going to be available.
I mean, I have Morning Brief on my Pixel Watch already.
It's going to be available on other devices, which leaves you to the point of what's the killer USP?
Well, I think the killer app here, it feels to me, is that this LLM thing could really develop into something really great. And then the other thing, that the examples they gave us of like, it detects you're falling asleep because your smart ring is
smartwatch.
And then it turns the volume down on your TV and turns it off.
Yeah.
It pops a thing on the TV in case you're actually not asleep, and lets you know about it. But like integrations like that, I think this is where the ecosystem starts to make sense.
Did you go to their home first look at CES?
I did not.
Okay. Here's where I wanted to see this. I see. I'm going to tangent off for a second, but it is Samsung
Tangents. We love tangents.
related.
Please.
Everything we talk about is a tangent. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. Let's talk about the weather. No, I'm joking.
You'll make my sparkling water come out of my nose.
Okay, so it's at CES. Possibly one of the best things I saw was what they called Vision AI. That was, they literally, that is the future of Samsung AI in the home.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to hear. And I think the only part that is relevant is what they were talking about, smart things and stuff like that. So
100%.
now, Vision AI was, hey, I'm watching something on my TV, and I'm like, you see the demo example, and I'll give you some footage for this. Like, demo example was, this is a Thanksgiving meal, and you're like, oh, what's that recipe? If you can pull, it will look at what's on the screen, show you what's, pull up the different recipes, and allow you to send one of those recipes directly to your Family Hub fridge. That's Vision AI. That there is quite possibly one of the smartest uses of AI I've seen on a consumer product. And now, 2 weeks later, and I say this like I'm sitting here coming into this going, I know this is an Android phone and you're working with Google, but at some point, this needs to deliver on the ecosystem play. I honestly wanted to see, like, the AI features are perfectly fine. They're fine. They're good. They're fine. What I wanted to see was 10 more things that are, this is why, not why you buy a Samsung phone, but this is why you buy it into a Samsung ecosystem. Because it's the one thing Samsung still has
100%.
that nobody else can come anywhere near close to
Except for
competing.
Huawei, but they don't matter here.
Yeah,
Like,
no one
you know
can
what I'm saying?
compete.
No,
one can.
Xiaomi and Huawei are the only ones.
Yeah, but neither of those guys, even if they were here, could compete to the same level.
I agree. That's my point. And I think you're making a very good point, is that, you know, a lot of us are looking at the phones in the absolute as a phone. And for me, yes, the Find X8 Pro is a better phone in every way. But once you look at the ecosystem, then it really makes a difference. And I think, you know, Samsung has always been an ecosystem play. You know, Bixby, where's Bixby? Huh?
Well, they called it a Bixby LLM.
So do they? So yeah, let's show the phones in a second. But one of the things I wanted to say before we get started with that is that, you know, I think for me, it's like the ecosystem, like Apple doesn't have anything like that yet because they don't have the appliances and they rely on others. They don't have the Ring. They have a watch. They have earbuds. That's about it. They have, of course, the Mac and the tablet, and that's very highly integrated, but it's very compute centric. Whereas with Samsung, you're getting like air purifiers and freaking, in some markets, you're getting home car chargers that are SmartThing capable and talk with your ecosystem.
Which is amazing.
Like, you get everything. You get fridges, you get washing machines. And I think that's where it matters. But here's a big question. And I think in reality, this is the downfall. This is like the negative of this. Is like, I want to commend Samsung for pushing the ecosystem. But who has an entire Samsung home? Most consumers are very price sensitive, and they look at a sale, like maybe Black Friday or something, and say, oh, this LG washer and dryer is on sale. I might have a Samsung TV and a Samsung phone, but now I'm going to buy the LG washer and dryer. Right?
So I actually do think when it, like Samsung appliances, like your washer dryer, yes, the LG ones will be on sale, but as long as they're comparatively priced, again, having family members who are this, I think actually you could see them push that ecosystem play a lot more.
It's a good color. You should hold it up. This is the S25 Ultra in some boring color. The color is also very boring. And this is a really hot color. There's a red for the regular.
Coral red. It is pink and bloody gorgeous.
It's kind of amazing because under light, as you move the phone, it goes from pink to orange to pink to orange. It's like a pearlescent almost.
Do you know what it is? It reminds me in so many ways of the Huawei P20 Pro in that fire color.
Right. Here is the Plus in a kind of a mint green. So the point is, we have the phones here, and you know, yeah.
I'll be honest, mint side, this navy is the winner.
So those are the base colors. That pinkish red, whatever, coral is a special you have to buy online.
Online exclusive, Samsung.com.
And I didn't realize that the green, the kind of light minty green Ultra was I grabbed it thinking, oh, this is a regular color. And this is the problem with the colors. They're so, other than the blue and the red, the coral, I think they're boring AF. Like Samsung. Last year you gave us a purple, not a special order, a purple S24 Ultra. That's the one I have.
Wait, there was a purple?
Whatever.
Oh, the violet. Yeah.
Amazing. Gold and violet. Like, wow. And now we're getting this.
Well, for those who are wondering what this looks like, this is the navy. There is one great example. Galaxy Note 8, Best Buy exclusive. Virtually identical navy.
Like, okay,
but absolutely bloody gorgeous.
Let's grab the 4 Ultras for a second. I can show you how boring the colors are. Okay, so you got, I don't know what the names of these colors are, but...
Well, I can tell you.
Some kind of blue, some kind of gold, some kind of gray, and some kind of white.
No, I can tell you. They all 4 start with titanium.
Boring! Also, they're different shades of titanium. At least there's that.
Yeah, they're matching. Let's check something, though, because I haven't checked this. This will be an interesting one.
The S Pen?
Ah, yes, the S Pen is color matched.
Yeah, it is, for once. Oh, maybe inside, is it?
Yeah, it's fully color matched.
Because, no, it's not. It's the same color in all of them.
No, wait.
Yeah.
These two are using the same S Pen color, okay. So let's check one of these.
Oh, you're right. Now, there's 2 different colors.
There's 2 different colors for the S Pen.
There's 4 colors for the phones, but 2 colors for the S Pen. Okay. Wow, we just discovered something new. But look, I want Samsung to give us better colors. And I think the coral is great, the navy is great, but can we get like
I think
yellow?
No, I think
like an orange.
The problem is, you look at the coral, it is one of the most striking colors.
But it's not on the Ultra.
But here's the thing. Why is that an online exclusive? Yes, you want people to buy it from Samsung.com, but you actually, that is you're doing it, in my opinion, the other way around. You want that color to be seen by as many people in the world because it's so unique.
I think there's a general cultural malaise around colors. And because I see that in cars, like it's kind of a chicken and egg catch-22 thing, right? The dealers sell more of the gray, white, black and like those muted
navy
colors, like these colors that we're seeing here, like pale beige, beige, boring. And they sell more of those. And so they stock them. And so if you're looking for another color, you don't want to wait to special order, blah, blah, blah. Maybe the manufacturer makes that special color, but now you have to wait and you're ready to buy.
You're waiting 3 for 6 months.
Exactly. And so I think this is the problem with phones too. And I think that in some markets, in China or other places, like Poco, right? Like yellows and stuff.
Dude, you look at the Realme GT7 Pro in that gorgeous orange.
I know.
You go to cars, look at Xiaomi's SUV with that stunning color.
Amazing.
And then you look at something like the Afila, which is very dull and muted and frankly quite boring.
So boring. So I think that hardware is not this year's S25 strong suit. I think the software will be, and I think some of it will come back to the older phones, but not all. And they were very clear about that. The other thing that I think is very exciting, we should mention, is all the AI image editing is now on device.
Yeah,
that is the first, right? Yeah. Because Apple's not doing it on device.
Everything's on device. Which
Apple's
means
not doing it on device, and certainly Pixel's not doing it on device.
Going back to it though, devil's advocate. Yes, hardware is not necessarily the strongest suit, but I have to say, the thing that statement does not take into account is the difference in weight. For example,
yeah, it's lighter.
No, but not just lighter. This thing here, you said it to me. The Galaxy S25, regular one here, is effectively what happens when you combine a Samsung phone, a Pixel, and an iPhone. And you have, frankly, actually some of the nicest hardware on a phone. This is bloody beautiful. It's light. It's gorgeous, it's thin, and I genuinely like it. Like, I think they dropped 6 grams from 24 to 25, 6 grams off the regular, 7 off the Plus, and 15 off the Ultra. The Ultra's 218. That's like surprisingly light
No,
comparatively.
I agree. But look, ultimately, they were copycats of the iPhone last year, and to some extent, Chinese phones are doing it too. Not all, though. Again, X8 Pro versus X8 regular. The X8 regular looks and feels like an iPhone, except the camera bump. But the X8 Pro, like the OnePlus 13 and like the GT7 Pro from Realme, has that 2.5D glass and front and back, and that really thin.
Yeah.
I think that's a better design. I think this is just lazy, and I feel like Samsung could create a better identity for themselves. They're such a strong brand. They have the money. They have the market share. Why not come up with your own design? There was a time. Remember when they had that little island thing that like kind of
on the 21
merged into now this if from the front, other than the front-facing camera, you do not know if this is an iPhone or a Samsung, and maybe that's what they want. But from the back, it's more obvious. Yeah, granted. But I feel like this trend to make all phones slab-sided and look like iPhones is pissing me off.
Very fair.
I'm done with it. And I'm particularly done with it because Apple's not doing anything interesting. That's why I'm really excited. I've said this on podcast last week. I'm really excited about the 17 Air. Because
it's different. It's a change.
Different.
The question is,
now that I see this, to be frank, this is the plus. And I see it's actually relatively thin. I'm thinking, okay, maybe the slim, because I kind of dismissed it on last week's podcast. I'm like, 6.4 millimeters is a rumor. And I'm like, that's not really thin, like compared to the 5 or so that was on the Moto Z back, the mods.
Yeah, or even on the Razr.
Or the Razr, or the folding phones. But I'm thinking a non-folding, think about like the original Moto Z, but think about the fact that the 17 Air is probably going to be the same thickness as an iPad Pro. Now that's thin. But now I'm seeing this in my hand and I'm like, without the camera bump, and even the camera bump's not that thick. I'm like, okay, so if you make that a little thinner, that's actually going to feel thinner. So maybe I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that the thin is going to be interesting. Now, of course, the question is, will they sacrifice battery life? Because
they have to.
Well, no, because these still don't use silicon carbon anodes.
They're not going to go silicon carbon.
But they should, and then they can keep the same performance.
Here's the thing. Without harping on why...
Note 7?
Wow.
Fire.
I mean, you brought it up. The reality is, I wrote this, they are somewhat, I think, paralyzed by past mistakes and issues. And those mean that the chances of them quickly adopting new technology in favor of it, no, they'll just do a slim and sacrifice battery life before they change the technology in it.
And this is my problem with Samsung as a whole. Where is he pushing the envelope in hardware that we see China doing? Apple, I kind of expected. They sit on their laurels, but they at least every now and then, like the Air, I think is going to be very innovative. I think that every now and then they do something you're like, like FaceTime. We had video calling on our Nokias, right? It sucked. It didn't work. It was carrier dependent. It was a nightmare.
It was expensive.
Apple comes around and FaceTime just works.
The issue has to be, though, the question is, will we get to a point where, let me rephrase that. Does Samsung need to? Because so think about this. I'm going to caveat that entire question with, from our perspective as a bunch of nerds who go to these things, and I think, frankly, a lot of people, having talked to people so far, and you'll see something of that on my nature on my channel soon, a lot of people are like, same thing, same again, quite bored, etc. Yet, I give you the example of my sister, my niece, who are Samsung users, have been, my dad, who was a Samsung user for a decade plus, before he passed. Like, to average Joes, Samsung is catering to its customers. We are not Samsung's customers.
But there was a time when Samsung really pushed the envelope, and
that's because I think they needed to, mainly for the reason of they had competition from a company that had just as much money, Huawei. Huawei
yeah,
had
you're right.
Huawei had
Yeah.
the budgets from its network infrastructure and from its benevolent benefactors that meant it had the ability to push Samsung every inch, whereby this was still Apple was taking its current model of it doesn't need to do any bloody work.
Right.
Apple does what it does. So Apple hasn't changed. What changed was Samsung no longer has a company fighting it in every corner to the same level.
Right.
Yet, and I wrote this no more than a month or two ago, there is still one company out there that if it got its shit together, mind my language, if it is the only company that I think has even bigger scale, and it is one of the biggest companies in the world. Who?
BBK Group?
No.
Xiaomi.
BBK can't touch them.
Xiaomi
can't touch them. There's only one company that could force Samsung
like a
out of
phone
its...
manufacturer?
Yep. You use it all the time.
Oh, Google?
Yeah.
They're not that big. They're small fry. Come on.
You gotta let me finish. What I wrote was, the secret to Samsung is, yes, they have a lot of scale, but if they had a few bad quarters from their phone division, they still have a big enough business supporting it, just like Huawei did.
Right.
That as a big company, you don't need to stress as much.
Right.
Google has enough scale as a major company
Right.
to be able to fight and not have to, and to be able to push Samsung in every corner. Again, would they? No, but the smart move is if I was Google,
Yeah.
I would 100% at the alphabet level be 100% be going, okay, we have ability here to not just make search, but because again, if they end up being forced to divest, they're really screwed in many ways,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
But until they are, can you imagine if they were willing to go, we're willing to take a bit of a haircut and to put as much money into advertising as we need to for all of the Made by Google series, because it's not just the hardware. Made by Google could quite easily apply to YouTube advertising and things like that.
No, I get
as
that.
a brand level. So they're the only company that I don't think they would, but I feel like there's an opportunity. And if they were to take that opportunity, is when you would see Samsung start to go, oh crap.
Yeah. No.
Because now they have to worry.
I agree. But you're right. Losing Huawei in the West really made both Apple and Samsung very complacent. But that's why I brought up Oppo and Xiaomi or BBK Group, because I was like, okay, you're talking about phones. Like the ones that are still innovating hard, in my opinion, are Xiaomi and BBK Group.
Yep.
And you know,
well, even Honor, 200 megapixel, 3x telephoto.
I think Honor is as well. I think the problem with Honor is that they are not doing that great with their software. Like the AI is interesting that they're doing, but their software just like, it just feels like, EMUI from 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I'm like, okay, guys, we've told you this for a few years now. Please fix it. Like, I appreciate like when the Magic V3 still blows my mind every time I touch it. Every time.
Outstanding.
Like the
foldable.
hardware there is just like, what?
By far right now, still my favorite foldable phone.
I mean, in terms of hardware, yes. I think in terms of overall experience, Pixel 9 Pro Fold.
No, so I'd say that, and I agree with you to an extent, and then I go back to my
OnePlus Open.
And then I go back to my Pixel 9 Pro Fold, and I'm like, it's just not, doesn't land in the same way that.
But you just talked about Google, and that's the problem with Google, is that Google and Samsung have this symbiotic relationship, right? Like we're seeing it here with like Circle to Search last year, and now some of these AI features, and I absolutely guarantee you, Samsung doesn't want to talk about it, but we'll see on Google phones in 3 weeks, right? But and then there's a whole Exynos, tensor thing. If Google went their own way and created like a partnership with MediaTek or Qualcomm to create a chip in-house, kind of like this supposed new chip that this 8 Elite for, what was that?
Sorry, it was this phone.
Oh, That's a good blooper. So, you know, if Google went ahead and did something with Qualcomm, like an 8 Elite for Google or for Pixel or whatever, and, you know, maybe improved some of the things on, like, I think in terms of hardware, the 9 Pro Fold is pretty solid, but I think the 9 Pro and Pro XL in particular are finally like at the scale of this or an iPhone, right?
Oh yeah,
Finally.
the 9 Pro is by far the best
I think
Google
right
phone
now
ever made.
Google and Samsung are too intertwined to kind of do this kind of competition you're talking about. But so that's why I feel like it helps Samsung be more complacent in terms of hardware. And also, Google is not a hardware company. Google will put more energy and effort into the software and the experience and the AI. In some ways, that's great because you know how much I love my Pixel experience. But in some ways, when I look at what I want is the Magic V3 or like the Oppo Find N5 or whatever OnePlus Open 2 with the Pixel software. Like that's what I want. That's the ultimate.
I don't know. I mean, we've tangented away from Samsung.
But I mean,
which is ironic.
What else is there to say?
The opening conversation was, this conversation is going to be all about Samsung.
No, but it is all about Samsung,
I'm messing. It's fine.
I'm
going back to it and go, you know what? The biggest negative on the Pixel series for me, and don't get me wrong, I've written on Android Police enough that when I worked there, I was like, yeah, I'm surprised by just how good the Pixel software is. But in the exact opposite to you, it's still Pixel software. And it is for me, flavor. It has a flavor.
Just like Samsung.
And I think it's a flavor that I dislike because I find it's a waste of space in a lot of times.
And this is why you're here, because I know you're a big Samsung fan. So for me, I'm going to be slightly biased against Samsung by default. So I wanted to compensate that for having you on because you are genuinely a fan of.
So I've used Samsung phones, Galaxy S1, all the way through. For every 6 months, switch between S and Note, S and Note, S and Fold, S and Fold. And ironically, I have not used a Samsung phone as a daily in over 6 months.
Wow. What have you been using then? I
have been using Find X8. I have been using V3 and the OnePlus 13. And I'll tell you why.
It's so good. It's in a case.
What is that? X8 Pro?
Yeah, X8 Pro.
Because what they did was they did everything that Samsung did, which is I love them because it's all about as much software and every feature on the thing. I mean, there's an irony that when Samsung said in their thing, we know our settings menu is a mess. So that's why we built an AI that will allow you to search your settings menu. Okay. That's clever.
No, but hang on.
Also very apt.
Exactly. Hang on. I was like, that is so Samsung. Because look, instead of like, let's simplify the settings menu and remove some stuff. Why not?
How are you? Because if you end up doing that, you end up you end up in a scenario.
You're patching a bug with another bug.
You end up in a scenario where it looks a lot like a Pixel settings menu, and the Pixel settings menu isn't easy to use. The fact is, unless you remove options, you end up with a lot of options, and you have to either remove options. Or simplifying them still puts you 4 or 5 steps away. What they're doing by adding an AI and trying to do it that way, I think is super clever.
It's clever, but it's kludgy. Like you're basically putting software on top of software to patch the fact that it's too hard to use the software. So my gut feeling is like, why don't you simplify it in the first place? We don't need all these settings.
Yeah.
Have you used an iPhone? It doesn't have a million settings.
Yes, it does.
I mean, comparatively to...
No. Okay. It has a million settings. There is a difference.
It's just organized.
I wouldn't even say it's organized because I find, and I use an iPhone every day.
The problem with the iPhone is that the app settings are not the system settings.
No. But the settings in an iPhone, it can take 5 steps, 6 steps to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So I appreciate when Android OEMs are doing, no, we want to make it 2 steps. I think it was 3 generations ago, I want to say One UI 4, where they made a massive deal, Samsung did, about the fact that you can get to any setting in
3 taps or something?
3 taps or less.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that isn't sustainable as you add more stuff. to some people, more stuff into the settings menu. But I appreciate that they are still not like, hey, you need 47 taps to get into it. Because at that point, you end up with a cluster. Beep.
Since we're like tangents, this is actually interesting for me because I generally with Android can find my way around mostly, and search does help, but you're right, it's getting to the point where we almost need an AI. But what I'm thinking of this because I just got a Mac Mini M4 and set it up, and it's like the last 2 or 3 versions of Mac OS, they completely revamped the settings menu. Like it used to be just a bunch of icons and I had kind of memorized where they were. And now it's like a list,
Oh, it's just iOS.
It's a total nightmare. Like I cannot find anything. The only way I find settings on my Mac now is to actually type it in. I used to be able to tell you, how to change like login apps. I know exactly where they go into accounts. Well, now I'm like, I have no freaking idea where they put that stuff.
So let's talk about this AI and settings for a second, because I think it's another point. Why are we at the point where you need to, I commend Samsung for doing their AI and settings and all of that. But the question really is, why can I not just fire up Gemini and go, but my eyes are hurting, turn down, and they're like, okay, we're going to turn down the brightness, we're going to adjust the comfort mode, wait for it. Or I want to change which, I've got dual SIM running, I want to change which SIM card I'm using for mobile data. We're talking about AI and generative, and I am probably one of the most critical people when it comes to generative AI.
Same.
Because nobody uses it more than 5 seconds. Why? As an example, Adam Dowd earlier took a picture of Jason Howell and was trying to draw a cat and a hat on its head, and it ended up being a fish floating and nibbling on Jason's ear. None of this is inherently useful. I mean, I find some like writing tools on iOS, like that stuff, surprisingly interesting. None of it's super useful. What I want is an AI that's going to actually change your life and improve your life from a productivity perspective. And that's the bit that I think we're still missing overall from a perspective of, so yes, it's personalized, but it's not life-changing yet.
What if, and I'm not sure if this is the answer, but what if Samsung's using Gemini for this and it's just going to come to Pixel in 3 weeks? Like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's part of that. Like, we don't know. Circle the search last year, we didn't know it was going to be, like they said, yeah, it's a Google thing, but they didn't say like it was going to come to everything else.
So the question is,
right?
So here's the thing. Is Samsung now because of the way that Samsung's product launches happen, and we know that I/O is in May on average.
Yeah.
Is Samsung just the preview of what's to come
well, that's
to
what
Android
it was like
as a
last
whole?
year,
Yeah.
right? Like last year we pretty much got that.
And if that's the case, are they anything more than an OEM? Because if Samsung built this with Google, I find it hard to believe that Samsung would have done enough to, well, if Samsung has put all the work in that they tried to say they have, I find it hard that they would then allow every other partner on the Android ecosystem to use the same stuff. And if it's all Google, what is Galaxy AI?
Well, Galaxy AI is the AI part of this that integrates to the Galaxy apps, right? The Samsung apps, like they have their own notes, their own calendar, their own whatever, right? They have and their own on-device image AI. They have their own photo gallery. So they still have, I think, that. And I think that, I think you look at most users, especially Samsung users, they don't seem to use Google Photos. They use the gallery from Samsung. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no, 100%. Like my sister, my aunt, my mum do not use Google Photos until I told them, well, back it up. They use it solely as a backup engine, not as a primary photos
But
app.
so maybe the ecosystem is the play. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's no longer about, Samsung doesn't even care. They want the best AI to make their ecosystem sing, and that's what Google provides. And they partner with Google, branding it Samsung in the same way as they're branding Qualcomm, right? 8 Elite for Galaxy.
That at that point, I can see it. And then especially if, so my question then goes, all the stuff they did with Vision AI in the home, and again, because this is all Samsung and smart things, is that Gemini? Is that the new Bixby LLM? Is that a combination? Because that actually, I think, will be the most telling example of what's to come in the future.
I think the other thing to set aside here is that they might be creating their own models, like Bixby LLM or whatever, that built-in LLM for your, letting you have it, your personalized, built on Gemini infrastructure, right? Like built.
So they're using Gemini as instead of having to develop their own full AI agent.
Right. So that's why on a Pixel, that's going to be a different experience.
So this is going to be the interesting one. I think the future of Galaxy smartphone, like, look, hardware is what it is. If they don't ever need to change the hardware, if they can make iterative changes, sure. I really want to see them push. Next year, I want this to be a whole new range of, we've saying this for years, but I want it to be a whole new range of welcome to the next generation of Galaxy. I would love to see the next generation of Galaxy at that point.
Yeah.
But I think this year is going to be incredibly telling because it will tell us everything we need to know about the direction that we can expect Galaxy AI and smartphones to lead to. That said, you look at morning brief, you look at the evening brief, this is smart.
I mean, it exists on Pixel already, so.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where you're like, as a user, you're like, oh, I can see this. Oh, I can see this. Do you know what's funny?
What?
I look at this and I'm like, you look at all the way that they're using AI and Gemini now, and you're like, holy hell, we have the evolution of the Play Edition phones. They just took a completely different approach.
My God, you're right. Yeah, right. This feels much more Play Edition than it ever did.
This is a Play Edition phone in that it's the best some of the best hardware. Well, not just like.
I want to make it clear. I don't think this is bad hardware. I think people who buy these phones are going to be very happy.
Yeah. So, but I mean, when I say best hardware, I mean like they've got incredible hardware with a curated software experience and the best set of experiences across the Android ecosystem, ironically being many of them are powered by Google services themselves. Guess what? Wasn't that Play Edition all those years ago?
I just want more from Samsung in terms of hardware. That's all. That's all I want. Like,
I want to see that push.
See, like, also, like, why is there a phone app that's still Samsung's phone app? I want Google's phone app.
Oh, hell no. Samsung's phone app is better.
Well, okay. I don't agree with
Objectively,
that.
I will tell you. I will tell you the Samsung camera app, the calendar app, is better than the Google calendar app.
Also, okay. Can we bitch about the fact that there's still, by default, 3 buttons in the wrong order, by the way, because the back button's on the right when it should be on the left. Like,
it's not by default.
Gesture?
No. So when you set up a Galaxy phone, it
asks you now?
It asks you, and the crucial thing is the default option is gestures, not navigation.
Well, why all these phones set up with buttons then?
I don't know, because you're dealing with what we can, the path of least resistance.
So we've been told we need to wrap up. So I know it's a bit of a short one. I'm sorry, folks. There were some issues with the space and stuff. So, Nirave, tell people where they can find you on the internet, where you're writing, what you're doing, where your social media handles live, etc.
Etc. Indeed. Well, I'm Nirave. You can find me at Nirave, Nirave, or at NiravG, Niraveg. I had to think about that.
Yeah.
For a second, it was Nirave
Egg.
Egg. That'll find me on Twitter, Instagram. You can also find me at hot.tech, and the social handle for everything is HOTDOTTECH. You'll find a lot of my writing now, either on the newsletter or most likely on Digital Trends and other places. And you'll find me on social doing a bunch of video things, when and if I ever actually get around to editing stuff.
Oh, editing.
So I'm sure in 26, you'll hear me talk about 2025 stuff.
I have so many unedited unboxing videos that I never post. It's ridiculous. Anyway, sorry about that. But time, I run out of it all the time. You know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankerl, TNKGRL, like the comic book character, drop the vowels on all the social. I'm on that terrible platform still because some of you are there. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Threads. I'm on Instagram. That's where you'll find me. So please, talk with Nirave and I on these platforms. The podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com or on all the big podcasting apps. If your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. That helps a lot. And then the YouTube channel is youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You know how YouTube works. So like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell. There's some rare occasional unboxing videos. You'll see a hands-on video with the Samsung phones this week. And then finally, you know about the Patreon, patreon.com/Tankerl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. If you want to support me, please consider joining the Patreon. You get a video version of the podcast. You get
Trust
it about...
me, you want to see the video version of these podcasts. They're fun.
Exactly. You get it about a day in advance, which is great. And it's $5 a month for every show on video every week. So consider helping me out with Patreon. And finally, I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And I want to thank you, Nirave, for joining me and waking up really early for the content capture.
Oh yeah, for everyone in these know, I was meant to be doing my content capture now, and Miriam forced me to get out of bed 2.5 hours early.
I know. I made you do it at 8 in the morning.
Y'all will realize quickly that 10:30 in the morning is early for me. 8 o'clock in the morning is usually when I haven't gone to bed yet.
So thanks, Nirave.
So you'll hear this on at least the next 6 podcasts because I like to bitch and moan a little bit.
Folks, stay tuned. We'll have another show next week. And until then, cheers, everybody.
Cheers, darlings.